Good afternoon. This is a meeting of the Illinois Liquor Control Commission. It is 1 p.m. Wednesday, August 18, 2021. We'll start with the roll call. Secretary Jarrett, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Stan Cooper,
Present.
Commissioner Gibbons,
Present.
Commissioner LaMalfa, Commissioner O'Connell,
Present.
Commissioner Powell,
Here.
Commissioner Polito Sanchez,
Present.
and Chair Berg.
Here. All right. We will go ahead with item number 2. Do I have a motion for the approval of the minutes of the board meeting held July 14, 2021?
So moved.
Second. Properly moved and seconded. Secretary Jarrett, please call the roll.
Commissioner Stan Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbons,
Yes.
Commissioner LaMalfa,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Powell,
Yes.
Commissioner Polito Sanchez,
Yes.
and Chair Berg.
Yes. Motion carries. All right. Let's item number 3. We'll move on to the division reports, beginning with enforcement. Les Peterson.
He just left, he'll be back.
Oh,
I think he was just went to get his
look,
mask.
it's time break.
I think he went to get his mask.
All right, Michelle, you want to go? Hi.
Okay, so Michelle Flagg, Industry Education. Let's see, the highlights for, we published our second quarter newsletter, and we're planning for prevention campaigns in the fall. So that's the College Town Summit, which will be held in October, and Red Ribbon Week, which is also held in October. In light of the pandemic, this will still continue to be virtual, but we're engaging parent organizations and scouting organizations and other youth groups in order to get the word out and have attendance. Let's see, regional mitigations, we're currently, as everyone knows, in phase 5. And let's see. Oh, and then as far as license applications, we're in the process of updating those, and licensing will continue to give us a report update on that. And unless there's any other questions, that concludes the highlights of the report.
I have a question. This is Commissioner Polito Sanchez.
Hello.
Hello, I have a question. This is Commissioner Polito Sanchez. What are your plans for Hispanic Heritage Month next month?
So it would be similar to, I guess, yeah, I guess.
Hey, I can see you. It's all right. I can see you. You don't have to turn around. I can see you.
Okay. So similar to what we did for Black History Month, where we interviewed business owners that are in the area of either liquor or restaurants. So we have 2 owners that were identified and recommended to me by Kevin in Enforcement. And so I'll meet with them to have a similar discussion. Then we'll save it on our YouTube channel, similar to what we did for Black History Month.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Is Les back?
Yes.
You want to go? Hi. Sorry about that.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon, everybody. The Enforcement Division conducted 1,025 inspections and found 330 violations in July. Additionally, 66 warnings were issued during the new license inspections. For complaints, during the month of July, we received 60. The most common complaints were no valid license, liquor liability insurance canceled, and sales to minors. Every complaint that we receive is investigated. For an underage compliance, the assistants were currently receiving applications for the UCAs via the new streamlined HR process and application. We've also got a new flyer that's coming out, and we encourage anybody, the board, anyone that knows of any 18 or 19-year-old kids that are in search of employment, that they contact and go to this website. For the underage compliance details, In July, the Enforcement Division completed 2 of them. Details of the information of the establishments that were checked, whether they passed or failed, are available on our website in the news releases, excuse me, reports the compliance check operations. For online marketplace sales, we of course have been monitoring the increase in secondary market online sale of alcohol. The most common online places are the Craigslist, the OfferUp. For the month of July, the Enforcement Department has reported removal 428 posts from Craigslist, 2 posts from Marketplace, and 4 posts from OfferUp. I would like to mention that on the Associated Press, there was another mass alcohol poisoning from a woman that made some homemade drink in Lithuania. 16 people died, and that continues to grow. Stories like this that happen mostly in other countries are solid evidence of how important our existence is in monitoring this type of thing and what we're doing to keep it from happening, these types of tragedies happening here. The notable investigations, you'll see we have 3 of them. There's a lot of them, but these are 3 that I think that you might find enjoyable to read. End of report.
All right, thank you, Les. Any questions for Les?
Yes, sir.
I have a question. Of the underage checks that were done, it looked like it was 20 to 25% failed. I can't overemphasize how important it is to continue in underage testing at a much larger scale than we're doing.
And
I know you're waiting for the employees.
right.
It's so important.
I share your enthusiasm in this. This is I guess, a pet peeve of mine. I find it's frustrating not to be able to go statewide and make a lot of things happen, but we are getting things in place. We are posting the new agent positions, which is going to be 7 agent positions. We're going to be beefing that up. The end game is to have a division that does just this. And certainly we can justify it without any question. So we're enthusiastically up on top of this.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to legal, but in the interim, I would like to introduce, welcome Noel Blombeck. Who joined the Illinois Liquor Control Commission in July as our General Counsel. Prior to Mr. Blombeck graduated from Loyola University School of Law and was admitted to the bar in 2005. Before that, he mapped the seafloor for 10 years as a hydrographic surveyor with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, otherwise known as NOAA, right?
That's correct.
And a Dutch geophysical company. And prior to joining the ILCC, he worked as litigator and trial attorney for the City of Chicago Department of Law. And it's BACP, as we know it, Business and License Enforcement Division. Over 16 years, he prosecuted hundreds of cases before the Mayor's License Discipline Commission for violations by licensed businesses of state and local laws related to the sale and regulation of alcohol, illegal business practices, gambling, zoning, and a myriad of other issues. He also defended denials of liquor licenses by the local liquor commissioners and dozens of de novo hearings before the License Appeal Commission, as well as in record on cases on appeal to the LEC for matters involving a fine, suspension, or revocation of liquor licenses. In the Chancery Division of the Circuit Court of Cook County, Mr. Blombeck handled scores of actions of administrative review involving interpretation of the LCA, which is the Liquor Control Act, questions of statutory construction, jurisdiction, due process, First Amendment, equal protection, and other constitutional claims. Please welcome me and joining Mr. Noel Blombeck. That's legal.
Madam Chairman, may I say something? Having been across the street for about 8 years on the License Appeals Commission, it was my honor to work with Noel. And I welcome this gentleman here. It's very tentative.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Connell, and thank you, Chair. I think I'll start off with the sale of alcohol to minors cases. We, since that's where we left off with enforcement, we have 30 open cases right now, 2 of which are third-time offenders, so we'll be needing to schedule hearings before the commission on those. We have a number of matters under administrative review right now. Of course, the Attorney General's office handles those for us. And we have actually 6 of those that are pending right now. Let's see. As far as other matters, we have the Lebemoff versus O'Connell case, which is set for hearing at the end of September. They expect that to take about 4 or 5 days. And we are going to have a number of people from the commission testifying in that matter. I guess the biggest issue is we have a lot of appeals right now. We have 6 cases that are set for hearing before the end of the year. And then we have one that's going to be heard sometime in early January. 3 of those 7 cases are going to be de novo hearings. So I'm sure you're all excited about that. We have been helping out licensing by doing drafting retail to retail transfer forms and cooperative purchasing agreements. And we are getting close to being done with reviewing those. Unless you have any questions, I guess that's the highlights for us.
There are many. Are there any questions from the board for Council Conlon?
I have a question. So you're seeing, and I know you're just getting here, there are a lot of cases of appeals, right?
Yes, there are.
I'm wondering, is there a strategy on how we may get in front of this, we as commissioners, anything that we can do or make ourselves more available to help you get through? I know there's some legal things that you have to do.
Yeah, right. And, you know, as you know, I'm sure we're hearing about 2 of those a month now. I think the biggest holdup is or the biggest thing to keep us from hearing more of those during the month would be the fact that we have to drop the opinions and get them to you in a timely manner. But Rick, do you have an opinion on whether we should be doing more of those appeals or?
If it's not a cause for concern, I'm fine, but it seems like it's.
Yeah.
There are more now pending than there have been in the past. The fact that we've scheduled 6 now to be held between now and the end of the year is going to help a lot. If there's, a lot of it really depends also on how prepared both parties are. So some of it's not even in our control. But if it continues that way into 2022, we might have to ask to hear these cases more frequently, maybe a couple times a month instead of 1 time.
I have a suggestion. Obviously, COVID's not going away. There's a mask back on again. And I'm anticipating there will be some new rules coming out. And I'm wondering if we should have some guidelines drawn up to answer the question of suspensions, fines, penalties for not following the guidelines. I know that this happened many times. Some of the other phases that we went through where there were retailers and bars that said we're not following that. We have guidelines for other penalties, but we have nothing for that type. And I think we ought to be looking at that seriously. And as we look at these cases that we've got coming up, I'm sure that's gonna be part of it, a big part of it.
Yeah, and you're correct. I mean, aside from the two cases that we're going to be, or you're going to be deliberating on today, there are a number of other appeals that are basically the exact same issue. And I guess I would say that I'm going to punch Rick again on this one, and see if he has anything he wants to add.
Just so I'm clear, Commissioner, the establishment of guidelines for restaurants to follow enclosure situations or?
Well, restaurants and retailers that refuse to follow the guidelines that are, or the rules that are given by the governor's office, for instance, or the city of Chicago, or the
Sure. Yeah, I mean,
different municipalities.
yeah, I mean, currently we're still in phase 5, so there hasn't been much from the state government. I thought there's going to be a lot more local enforcement, so like we've heard recently, mandatory indoor mask requirements. And so then from there, we have to determine, okay, is it a violation of local law? And if it is, we can bring a case. We have a rule that allows us to bring a case for a violation of a local ordinance. Backing up a little bit, we have to have a report, an investigation report that identifies a violation of such. And about a year ago, when COVID was, rampant, and there were the orders came from the governor's office, we had an investigation team out there that were checking. But now we'd have to likely work more closely with the local commissioners or the local municipalities to determine if there are local violations.
I know, pardon me, I know we have guidelines set up for penalties for underage serving.
Yep.
I know we have penalties for other things, and I'm looking for some guidance for us, the commissioners, for these cases that are going to continue to come.
So just so I'm clear, like a graduated penalty grid related to violation of closure orders, local closure orders or state closure orders related to COVID?
Correct.
Okay. I understand.
And I would think that those, whatever is developed there should also be shared with the local liquor commissioners.
Right.
Any further questions for Council Palmer? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, licensing division with Dushaka Marion.
Good afternoon, Chair, Commissioners, industry members here. Wanted to provide a few updates today in reference to the licensing division. On August 2nd, we reopened both of our offices, our Chicago and Springfield office, to the general public. Our licensees now have the option to renew their licenses either electronically, in person, or via mail. So giving them that option to come in person, that has been since August 2nd when we reopened both offices. And we are not seeing the high volume of licensees and applicants here at our offices, but just providing that option, we wanted to make sure we had that option for our licensees. 97% of our licensees have either applied electronically online, renewed their license online. So those numbers are still pretty high. Our licensees definitely are utilizing the online renewal options and electronic submission options. Also wanted to mention that the licenses are extended till the end of December. So licensees are utilizing that option as well. They do not have to renew their license on the expiration date that is listed on their current license certificate. They have until December 31st of 2021 to renew the license. And as far as percentages go, how many of our licensees are renewing their licenses? roughly about 74% currently. Last month, we ran some reports. So we still have about 26% of our licensees that are utilizing that option to wait until the end of the year to renew their licenses. I will be working with our industry education division and our IT divisions. We want to send out reminders. We do not want licensees to wait until the last minute to renew, because then we may see a high volume of applications come in. So I think beginning probably next month, we'll be sending reminders out via email to those licensees that have not renewed. And reminding them they have until the end of the year, and do that monthly just to make sure that they are being informed of the extension. Special events. We have seen a significant increase in the number of special events. And I just like to go over a few numbers with you. April, we had 236. May, we had 434. June, 785, and just this past July, we had 1,171 special event applicants apply for licenses and receive their licenses. So just from April, having 236 to this past July, 1,171, as you can see, that's been a significant increase. We aren't at the pre-pandemic numbers yet, but we are seeing an increase in special event applications that we've been receiving. Another item I want to highlight, which is very important, this time last year, we started a system upgrade. The agencies involved in this system upgrade, currently we are working in version 10 of the GenTax system. We are upgrading to version 12. The agencies that are involved with this upgrade, the Illinois Liquor Commission, Illinois Department of Revenue, and a division of the Illinois Department of Employment Security. These three agencies utilize GenTax. We utilize it for all of our software needs, as well as the Illinois Department of Revenue. IDES utilizes it for one section of what they need as far as withholdings and employment insurance taxes. That being said, this project started a year ago, and it has many, many phases to it, and there's a high level of regression testing involved. So the ILCC licensing divisions and enforcement divisions have been heavily involved, allocating a lot of resources to regression testing. We're at the final stages of testing, and implementation date originally last year was for June. That was changed September of last year to this September. So we knew last September of 20, that the rollout date was going to be September 6th. So it takes a lot of planning, a lot of resources allocated to that, and just letting the team know we are on schedule for the implementation of version 12 that will impact Illinois Liquor Commission, IDES, and Revenue on September 6th. So we are on schedule, just providing that update to the board. That concludes my report. Chair, Commissioners, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Yes, Commissioner Gibbons, yes.
I think you're reminding, if you go ahead with your plans to remind the licensees to renew early, it's a great idea. But I think they're going to wait until the very last minute. If I read your charts right, you have like 2,500 licenses that will be overdue. Will be renewed at the end of December at the latest date.
We have about 26% of our licensees have not renewed.
Okay, so it's 26% of 2,500?
26, yeah, it's 26% of our total licenses,
Right.
which is over 30,000.
All right, I guess I counted 2,500. But anyway, do you have the help you need for that month of December to get through that?
Sure.
patch? Because-
Yeah, so I'm working with HR right now. We are actually scheduling interviews. We have a vacancy here in the Chicago office, and we're scheduling interviews for hopefully mid-September. And we're also looking at filling a possible vacancy in our Springfield office. So There will be some challenges if we do get those 26% renew, at the end of December, all at the same time. And we will, have some plans in place to address those issues and concerns. Also, the 26%, we don't know if they will be renewing, if they've closed their businesses and maybe they have not notified us yet. So there could be a percentage of those licensees also that, may not be renewing and just have not canceled their license just yet. So yeah, that is something that we are definitely going to look into to make sure that we have the resources available to address these last minute renewals. And we're dealing with that right now a lot with special event applicants. We have a lot of special event applicants that just received their local approval and their events are this weekend. And that's been challenging, absolutely, for licensing because, it gives us a very small window on being able to issue these licenses, but we do. The licensing division has been working numerous hours on quite a bit of projects. The influx of special events increase that we've had, and also all these system upgrades that we have right now. It's been very challenging, but the division has definitely done what they've had to do to make sure that we address all these issues.
Have we thought at all about any other employees who could be cross-trained in certain parts of the registration license?
That's a very good question, and we've talked about that. There are some bargaining unit issues that we would have to make sure that we address before we start assigning other job duties to employees within the division. That is definitely something that we is a concern and something we would have to definitely take a look at. But also the option of temporary employees for a small period of time if we needed to. That is something that we would look into as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it just for the times you get swamped.
Oh, yes.
December, all those people marching.
Correct. And we've been right, and we've been working with the city of Chicago as well as other local jurisdictions, just in letting them know the importance of getting these types of applications to us as soon as possible, especially with the special events, because they're very time sensitive. So that's something that we've definitely reached out, and especially with the city recently, we've communicated to them the need that their approvals are very important that we receive, prior to the event being this weekend. Getting them on Friday afternoon has been challenging, and giving us only a few hours to turn them around and issue them. But we've definitely communicated that to our partners, local jurisdiction partners.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Great job on organizing that last minute. And moving forward, there'll be 2 more employees at the end of December, hopefully.
We're hoping, yes.
And this is it's more busy currently with special events, so.
That is correct, yes.
We'll work together and make sure that you have enough help.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for your support.
You're welcome. And lastly, operations, Tom Schulenhardt.
Good afternoon, Chairman. I'll be brief. A lot of the operational stuff was covered already from some of the division heads. As Dashanka mentioned, we have the 2 licensing assistants that will be coming on board hopefully in the next couple of months. And enforcement, we're still working with CMS on adding 7 more additional, it's 3 inspectors and 4 investigator trainees. So we're still working on that. We have not begun the postings yet. We're hoping in the next, by the end of this month, we can do that. So that's where we are with staff currently. And just to follow up from last month, we're still working diligently on getting the delinquency list software from WSDI to procure that from them, and also speaking with the person that manages it and attempting try to get a temporary contract with that individual, and they would train our staff to be able to use that software. So that's going fairly well, and we are still shooting for, of course, January 1st to be taking over that list. And then just wanted to highlight some upcoming events that staff will be going to at the end of this month. The Center for Alcohol Policy is hosting their annual conference here in Chicago. It's the annual Alcohol Law and Policy Conference. And so I think pretty much all of our legal team and the director and myself will be going there. And it's just a really good resource for what's happening in the industry on the legal side and policy side as well. And then the National Conference of State Liquor Administrators, Rick Haymaker should be attending that, pending approval. The governor's office just approved the travel to go out of state for that, and he will be attending for us over there. And then also the Illinois Licensed Beverage Association has their annual conference, which we will attend down in Effingham in late September, and we'll have a booth there for our industry education. And then also the director will be making a presentation along with staff as well. That's about it.
Very good, thank you. Is there any questions for operation? I also will be attending the Center for Alcohol Policy, so I look forward to joining all of you.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, item number 4, we will receive the State of Industry Report. Please welcome Danielle D'Alessandro of the Illinois Craft Brewers Guild. Hello.
Given the length of the presentation, would it be acceptable if I took my mask off? I am fully vaccinated. Just wanted to ask if that was okay. If not, it's okay. It's warm. But okay, it's okay. Okay. No worries. Should have checked that in advance. Well, good afternoon, Chairwoman, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. My name is Danielle D'Alessandro. I'm the Executive Director of the Illinois Craft Brewers Guild. The Illinois Craft Brewers Guild is a 501c6 trade association that was founded in 1997. We are committed to promoting the development and expansion of the craft beer industry in Illinois, and we do that through 3 main areas: advocacy, education, and promotion. We provide a voice for all Illinois brewers before the state legislature and state commission and governor's office. We offer educational opportunities throughout the year to brewing members to further their technical brewing knowledge, and an annual conference where we educate, an annual conference and trade show. We also educate consumers on varieties of craft beer while encouraging responsible and moderate consumption. And in promotion, we host a number of craft beer events and festivals throughout the year to promote our brewery members, not only to the consumers, but also to other brewers, suppliers, distributors, regulators, and legislators. The organizational composition, we have several different types of membership. We have our regular brewery members. Those are our brick and mortar brewery and brew pubs. Our ally brewery members, breweries that are in planning that plan to come online in the next year or 2. Contract brewers, which I'll explain a little bit about in a moment. Out-of-state brewers and large brewers. Large brewers that don't fit the definition of craft because they're owned by large domestic brewers. We also have an associate membership level that includes but is not limited to suppliers, insurance companies, marketing and advertising agencies, law firms, and financial institutions. We have over 200 regular brewery members, around 30 allied brewery members, and just over 100 associate members. We also maintain a beer enthusiast program for the general public called I'm a Big Illinois Beer Enthusiast, or Imbibe. I did not come up with that. We also, though, in terms of the promotion piece and promoting our festival, our brewery members have, a design and media and a PR team that works on messaging. And so came up a couple of years ago with our Drink Illinois logo. And so if anyone wants to take a sticker, I may leave these here for you guys. They're very cool. Moving on, the Guild has a 9-member board of directors that's comprised of brewery owners and senior management. Now, these are individuals that submit their names for consideration and are elected at our annual meeting in July by regular brewery members. Board members serve 2-year staggered terms for a total or a maximum of 3 terms, 6 years total. Our current active committees include our Government Affairs Committee and FOBAB, Festival of Wood and Barrel Aged Beer, our largest festival and fundraiser. The Board of Directors, though, recently approved 2 new committees that are going to come online this year, and that's an Events Committee and our Scholarship Diversity Committee, which I'll talk a little bit more about. ICBG members are issued 1, if not more, of the following state licenses: Brewer, Class 1 Brewer, Class 2 Brewer, or Brew Pub. The 2 additional types of brewery models in practice include alternating proprietorships and contract brewers. Alternating proprietorships utilize and share one another's brewing space and brewing equipment, but are federally and state licensed. They have an agreement with the host brewery on days that they will brew, and during that time, they have title to the beer at all stages of the brewing process. They are also responsible for all label approvals, excise taxes, and license renewals. Contract brewers, on the other hand, do not have a federal TTB brewer's notice or state license, typically, and pays the host brewery to brew their beer according to their recipes. The host brewery then is responsible for brewing the beer, maintaining all the brewing records, obtaining necessary label approval from the TTB, labeling the beer using their name and address, and paying all appropriate taxes. The ICBG represents members that under the Liquor Control Act are hybrid models and are allowed to operate in more than 1 tier. Brewers, Class 1 and Class 2 brewers are classified as manufacturers, but most operate a retail space in the form of a tap room or bottle shop. That retail license is issued at the local, the municipal level for them to sell to non-licensees, and some even self-distribute directly to retailers. Brew pubs are classified as specialty retailers with limited manufacturing privileges that traditionally sell more than 25% of their beer on site. I provide a brief description of state brewery licenses because these can get a little confusing. The basic brewer license permits the licensee to manufacture beer with no caps or restrictions. They cannot hold a brew pub license, though, unless they apply for and receive a Class 2 brewer's license. You're going to see throughout the presentation, or at least the following page or 2 asterisks, that indicates in these licenses provisions that are in House Bill 2620. They're awaiting the governor's signature, so they're not currently in statute, but will be once the bill is signed into law. So when House Bill 2620 is signed into law, brewers will be able to sell beer, cider, and mead in its original package to non-licensees outside of the brewery at curbside or in a parking lot adjacent to the brewery. A Class 1 brewer allows the brewer, so a Class 1 brewer has already received a brewer's license. They add on the Class 1 brewer license, which permits them to manufacture up to 30,000 barrels of beer annually and self-distribute up to 7,500 of those barrels to retailer licenses. Class 1 brewers cannot hold a brew pub license, but they can also receive approval at the local level to operate at retail. A licensee can hold multiple Class 1 brewer licenses, and if common and wholly owned, may transfer beer between locations. Again, once House Bill 2620 becomes law, Class 1 brewers will be able to apply for a Class 1 craft distiller's license or a first-class winemaker license, manufacture those products, and maintain self-distribution afforded in those specific licenses. Any alcohol produced on-site may be sold to non-licensees for on or off-premise consumption out of the licensed retail space. The Class 2 brewer is when we're talking about hybrid models, is exactly a hybrid license that permits the common ownership of a production brewery and a brew pub. That's not required, though. We do have a couple of Class 2 brewer licenses that just own and operate more than 1 brewery, but they don't do any self-distribution. But in order to transfer beer between those common and wholly owned locations, operate under a Class 2 license. The Class 2 brewer can manufacture up to 120,000 barrels across all locations. That license holder may transfer up to 1,000 barrels annually to a brew pub location that is located within 80 miles of the brewery. That beer, though, that's transferred counts against the total production limit of the brew pub cap, which is 5,000 barrels. So, for example, if a Class 2 brewer this year transfers 1,000 barrels to their brew pub, they then would be capped at 4,000 barrels of production at that brew pub location. A Class 2 brewer license can have up to 3 retail locations in the form of a tap room, bottle shop, or brew pub. Once House Bill 2620 becomes law, Class 2 brewers may apply for a Class 2 craft distiller's license or a second-class winemaker's license to produce spirits or wine, but that does not allow them to operate more than 3 total retail locations. The new license category that we created in House Bill 2620 is the Class 3 brewer. This is very similar to the brew pub license, but is classified as a manufacturer and will be allowed to produce up to 5,000 barrels annually and self-distribute up to 200 barrels per location. Licensees may hold more than one Class 3 brewer license, but different from the Class 1, they are capped at a combined barrelage of 15,000 per year to manufacture or self-distribute no more than 600 barrels across all locations. A Class 3 brewer will be permitted to sell beer, wine, and spirits purchased from a licensed distributor or a self-distributing producer to non-licensees for on or off-premise consumption. New also Class 3 brewers will be able to apply for a beer showcase permit, which authorizes the Class 3 brewer or a distributor to transfer beer from the licensed premise to the location listed in the permit for a period of 1 or 2 days or up to 15 days, and to offer samples and or sell up to 96 ounces of beer per day per non-licensee. Additional notes I think are worth noting is that brewers Class 1 and Class 2 can also apply for a warehouse permit, which allows them to store tax-paid beer off-site. The warehouse permits are not allowed or not permitted for Class 3 brewers or brew pubs. Brewers Class 1 and Class 2 brewers also cannot apply for and receive special use permits, which Dashanka touched on, which allows you to host an event off the licensed premise. Class 3 brewers will be able to receive those beer showcase permits. And finally, under this manufacturing category, another component of House Bill 2620, mead will be able to be purchased by a brewer, Class 1 or Class 2 brewer, from a winery or a licensed distributor to be sold to non-licensees at retail out of their tap room. Moving into the brew pub, again, classified as a specialty retailer, they're capped at that 5,000 barrels annually. They can purchase beer, wine, or spirits from a licensed distributor or from a self-distributing producer and typically operate a full kitchen. A brew pub is not permitted to self-distribute, but as a retailer can obtain those special use permits to host events and sell alcohol to non-licensees off the licensed premise. A licensee can hold multiple brew pub licenses and transfer between common and wholly owned locations. Finally, brew pubs may combine their total barrelage to brew a majority at a single location. So if there is an owner has 2 brew pubs, they have 10,000 barrels of beer combined that they can produce. They are allowed to manufacture 9,000 barrels at one location and then would be capped at 1,000 barrels at that other location. So as long as they're not going over that 10,000 barrels total, they're okay to brew at what location they decide. Moving on to the economic impact, the information provided is based on 2019 and 2020 economic data from the Brewers Association that ranks all 50 states relative to production, economic impact, and sales data. The Brewers Association is the national trade association representing craft brewers across the U.S. Their quick numbers I also provided in the supporting documents. Commissioner should have received just the one-pager with all this information on there as well that the BA puts together. So in 2019, the craft beer industry in Illinois had a $3.38 billion economic impact. That dropped $1.08 billion in 2020 for a $2.30 billion economic impact. At the end of 2020, we had 295 craft brewers in Illinois, which ranks 13th. You can see that the barrels that were produced last year, we did see a 6% decline in production due to COVID. And unfortunately, one of the most compelling numbers that demonstrates the significant impact that not just craft brewers, but the hospitality in general saw was we saw a 35% decrease in jobs, full-time employment. So dropped from 21,492 full-time jobs in 2019 down to 13,964 in 2020. The average wage in the craft beer industry in Illinois is $52,745. I also provided the ILCC license breakdown. This is as of July 11th, of this year. And at least from what I was able to compile from the licenses report, we have 168 brew pub licenses, 125 Class 1 brewer licenses, 19 Class 2 brewer licenses, and 23 brewers licenses. So those 23 brewer licenses, again, that's going to be your Goose Island, your Lagunitas, but also some of our craft brewers. There's a brewery down in back of the yards in Southside Chicago, Weiner Beer Company, that when they opened, they never utilized a distributor, have only ever had the brewer license, and have had a lot of success with that. Circling back then to just some of the impact that COVID had on the industry. While craft beer did see year-over-year growth in 2019 with a 4% increase from the prior year, COVID halted and even slightly reversed some of those gains. In 2020, overall U.S. beer volume sales were down 3%, while craft beer sales fell 9%. As a result, the share of the U.S. beer market by volume for small and independent brewers dropped to 12.3% in 2020, and it reached a peak of 13.6% in 2019. Production was also down nationally, 3% for beer and 9% for craft beer in 2020, and retail dollar sales for craft beer declined 22%. And as I indicated, craft brewing jobs nationally fell by 14% from 2019. Overall, we saw COVID hurt small brewers the most, while regional and domestic brewers fared slightly better over the past 18 months. Those brewers already had accounts established, they had their shelf space, and consumers gravitated towards what they knew and were familiar with. Around diversity and inclusion initiatives, the ICBG and the craft beer community is committed to the conversation of diversity and inclusion and how we collectively work together to listen better and provide more opportunities for change. The Brewers Association has also taken steps at the national level by creating a diversity and inclusion events grant program, supporting local and regional events meant to purposely foster a more diverse and inclusive craft beer community. They've also created a new diversity, equity, and inclusion department and hired a full-time employee to run that department, which will focus on mentoring, implementing a new equity scorecard, administering the diversity grant program, and delivering regular content to industry members. We're planning to announce this summer and fall a new diversity scholarship committee in partnership with the Siebel Institute of Technology, the oldest brewing school in the country, to annually award 2 scholarships to people of color, women, and minorities. 1 scholarship will be awarded to an individual with no prior brewing experience, while the second will support someone looking to advance their current career in craft beer. The scholarship will cover the cost of the coursework and materials and would include job placement assistance if necessary. Another important aspect of the work that we do around inclusion is by advocating for safe and inclusive workplaces for anyone that works in beer. This past May, hundreds of reports of sexual assault, harassment, misconduct, and discrimination within the industry were shared on Instagram pages, Instagram and Facebook groups, underscoring the need to act now. In light of those stories, the ICBG Board of Directors approved an updated code of conduct that makes the panel responsible for investigating claims of abuse a permanent and active committee that will provide timely, relevant, and actionable information and resources to ICBG members. An active panel will also serve as a reminder that the ICBG takes the professionalism, integrity, and well-being of the individuals working in the craft beer industry seriously. Around educational events and annual conferences, the ICBG hosts quarterly meetings in January, April, July, and October that provide brew members an opportunity to network with one another, learn from technical seminars focused on the brewing process, and to hear updates on current ICBG efforts. The 5th annual conference and trade show is tentatively planned for January of 2022. So we pushed our annual conference to the beginning of this upcoming year. The BA also hosts an annual conference, which will be in Denver this next month. Throughout the year, the ICBG passes along appropriate opportunities and training that may be offered by the BA, law firms, Illinois' Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, Chicago's Business Affairs and Consumer Protection Bureau, and occasionally other trade associations. We also hosted a restaurant revitalization fund webinar with our brewery members that was led by the director of Illinois' SBA district office when there were questions around program eligibility and the application process. Around policy priorities, I did include the 6 bills that at least have dealt directly with or have been sponsored, supported by the ICBG over the last decade. I won't spend time reading through those. I'll just note quickly, though, House Bill 2620, which commissioners would be the most familiar with, though, is a bill that we did pass this legislative session that includes provisions around cooperative purchasing, retail transfers, and the delinquency report, but also creates a number of new opportunities for craft brewers. So quickly, it creates the Class 3 brewer license that provides this pathway for brew pubs to be able to self-distribute if they transfer and switch to that new license. It'll allow for the purchase of mead by brewers, Class 1 and Class 2 brewers. It maintains curbside pickup for all of our brewers and codifies the ability of a Class 1 brewer to maintain self-distribution even if they manufacture wine or spirits. Also important, though, in House Bill 2620, Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3 brewers and brew pubs will be required going forward to submit their TTB brewery report of operations to the ILCC and IDOR when they are filing with the TTB, along with the amount of water used in the production of beer. So we, of course, will look forward to working with the ILCC on when that process is implemented, and brewers are expected to start complying with that. Overall, the ICBG supports flexibility and innovation when it comes to the regulation of alcohol. As COVID forced Illinois to shutter on-premise dining and cancel gatherings and events, sporting events and entertainment, demand for draft beer bottomed out. And state governments had to respond quickly with aid and temporary provisions for breweries, bars, and restaurants to reach their customers and keep their doors open. Initially, the ILCC excluded state alcohol producers from the list of licensees allowed to temporary home deliver, but were fortunately included after the ICBG lobbied the governor's office. Home delivery proved to be a lifeline for many brewers as loyal customers kept their beer tabs going from their homes. Unfortunately, temporary home delivery ceased on July 1 of this year. Despite the legislature approving new privileges for retailers, including uniform and permanent delivery, cocktails to go, and single servings of wine this year, small brewers continue to be left with few opportunities. Delivery, along with direct-to-consumer beer shipping, was included in legislation that we filed earlier this year that was ultimately removed in the final agreement reflected in House Bill 2620 due to significant opposition. ICBG long-term policy goals, though, include interstate direct-to-consumer beer shipping, home delivery, allowing brewers to be eligible for these new beer showcase permits, reforming franchise law, otherwise known as the Beer Industry Fair Dealing Act in Illinois, and increasing the allowable number of retail licensees for the Class 2 brewer. Despite the fears of some industry members, the policy changes the ICBG seeks to advance still all fall within the structure of the three-tier system and would not lessen the demand for strong wholesale and retail partners. Brewers rely on a strong distribution and retail tier that can support their growth to meet their business obligations and consumer demands. Moving on to some of the challenges in open market and access. The ICBG supports an open market that's free from undue influence and provides the broadest choice for the consumer. Continued consolidation in the wholesale tier amplifies how critical direct access to consumers and retailers is for small brewers and their brands. As an example, with 300 craft breweries in Illinois, let's say on average that every brewery produced 10 unique beer brands a year. That alone would mean 3,000 brands in Illinois that beer wholesalers would be expected to transport and sell if every brewery was required to use a wholesaler. Unfortunately, most distributors are not licensed to operate statewide, nor would the roughly 100 to 150 warehouses be able to handle that quantity. Those figures also don't account for the brands that are represented by domestic and international breweries, like AB InBev, Miller, Heineken, and Molson Coors, and others that unequivocally sell the most beer by volume. A brewery producing 1,000 barrels a year in Illinois will never be able to compete for the attention of a distributor when AB InBev can record producing 470 million barrels of beer alone in 2019. And they shouldn't have to. We hope regulators see this too and are provided a better understanding of the barriers that small brewers are faced with when distributors and domestic brewers continually challenge and oppose opportunities for more market access. E-commerce platforms and outdated regulations. As third-party providers and retailers are able to benefit more from online sales, that will create continued barriers to access and a loss of revenue for small brewers and producers. Despite being manufacturers, small brewers should not be treated similarly to domestic brewers that have the marketing budgets and volume to partner with third-party providers, entertainment venues, and retailers, giving them a competitive advantage, and one that they don't need, while ensuring that small brewers remain unable to compete. We're certainly seeing continued challenges in the labor shortage. Brewery owners, similar to others in the hospitality industry, are struggling to find adequate staffing that would allow them to fully reopen to customers. Indoor dining closures due to COVID-19 earlier this year and last forced everyone in the industry to lay off valued employees. Many former team members found employment in other industries or have simply decided not to return to hospitality. Aluminum and material shortage. Brewers are navigating increased costs as tariffs on Chinese steel and aluminum remain. The U.S. continues to deal with the can shortage, and there is sustained demand to package draft beer. New aluminum processing plants are scheduled to come online, but that will not address short-term demand and is not a short-term solution. We expect additional delays and shortages in materials to continue as the world continues to grapple with COVID and its new variants. Lastly, franchise law. The Beer Industry Fair Dealing Act, or BIFTA, was enacted in 1982 and heavily favors and protects the interests of distributors by locking brewers into lifelong contracts that are difficult to terminate, costly, and are one-sided. As previously touched on, the consolidation in the wholesale tier over the past several years have left small brewers with fewer choices and less visibility from a supplier who has hundreds of brands in their portfolio. Despite this, distributors still make it incredibly difficult for brewers to get out of contracts, even if they are not actively purchasing or selling their brands. Protections for wholesalers were reasonable decades ago, when there were only a few domestic brewers and hundreds of small family-owned wholesalers that could risk going out of business if one of those brewers decided to simply terminate an agreement without cause. Today, though, the market is vastly different, with dominant, large, and in some cases, multi-state wholesalers that hinder the growth of small craft brewers that don't have the financial resources to terminate their agreements if their relationship is no longer working. In terms of ILCC collaboration to address enforcement, licensing, and education, we believe enforcement should be fair and consistent. Trivial infractions should receive warnings as opposed to fines, which are sometimes negotiated down but waste time and resources. Accurate and uniform training, along with regular education for ILCC employees, is crucial to providing correct regulatory information to industry members. I had a brewery member reach out to me 2 days ago that had received inaccurate information regarding a transfer issue by an ILCC employee. So providing consistent, uniform training is important. Industry circulars are a great and informative way to provide further clarity and education to stakeholders, and the ICBG is committed to making sure our brewery members are informed when new ones are posted. And if there's ever opportunities for the ICBG to partner with the ILCC, we are more than open to doing so. Our near and long-term projections around technology, three-tier system, and recreational marijuana. Technology will continue to improve and systematize the brewing process. Our brewers welcome new product informations and new brewing equipment. It's also, though, provided more consumer access and information to beer than ever before. Beer drinkers can rate their experiences and beer styles in real time on apps like Untappd and Beer Advocate that can create hype or backlash for a brewery within minutes. Third-party providers like Uber Eats, Drizzly, Tavour continue to alter the landscape by providing more delivery choices for the consumer, but also create more competition for on-premise retailers when you can decide to stay in on a Friday night and just order a six-pack online. Online and e-commerce delivery skills skyrocketed last year due to COVID and will continue to see steady growth as consumers purchase more of their household products, including food and beverage, from their phones and computers. While the ICBG supports the three-tier system as a mechanism to regulate the production, transportation, and sale of alcohol, we predict it will continue to evolve as legislators modernize regulations and consumer preferences change. As an example, in a recently published survey conducted by Nielsen Harris, 84% of craft beer drinkers nationally said they want to be able to legally purchase beer from a brewery via direct-to-consumer shipping to their home. Yet, DTC shipping is currently legal in only 13 states and Washington, D.C. However, as these trends continue, we expect there will be additional public pressure on lawmakers to enact policies that are more flexible and favorable to small businesses and consumers. And finally, the ICBG is neutral regarding the implementation and administration of recreational marijuana and welcomes whatever approach the General Assembly and Governor's Office ultimately takes. As an industry that encourages access to the marketplace, consumers again should be able to choose from a variety of products that supports their lifestyle. Recreational sales will continue to grow exponentially in the near term, but to date, we've not seen this lead to a decline in overall beer sales in other states where recreational use has been legal for much longer. As I indicated, I provided the 2020 economic impact report that the BA provided specific to Illinois. Annual report, minus the financials, to provide commissioners and staff with a deeper look into the support that our organization provides, not just on the regulatory and legislative level, but in terms of events and other efforts that are underway. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and again, appreciate your time to be able to present this afternoon.
Any questions, comments? Thank you so much. Thanks for coming. I know last time you were on the agenda, so thanks for coming today.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it, Danielle.
This worked. It was great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right, Moving on, item number 5, public comments. Team, was there anybody that, I didn't see any emails?
No, Madam Chair.
Any phone calls, anybody on the, okay, so we can just, proceed with anyone here wish to address the board at this time. All right, there are no public comments today. And we will move on to board comments. Does any board member have any comments at this time? Commissioner Vancouver?
No.
Commissioner Gibbons?
Yes. Is the person that is in charge of our HR department here today?
Whatever. He's in the,
Harris? He's here. Chief.
Right,
Want me-
probably wait.
Okay.
I have had the pleasure of meeting with you.
Hello.
Address a question to you or a comment.
Okay,
Can you introduce yourself?
I am Laviris Jefferson. I'm the Human Resources Manager for the Liquor Commission.
A comment, I think I've made it before, so I might be repeating myself, but I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, Shashanka, but the majority of our retail licenses now are now held by people of Indian descent. Is that correct?
Well, our retail licensees, right now, we're not tracking that information. We are only tracking gender. That is something that we are looking at tracking in the near future on our applications. But currently, right now, all we track is the gender of the applicants.
I might suggest that we somehow try to include hiring some people of Indian descent within our ILCC ranks so that we can better communicate, better know what's going on in the field, possibly with investigators or inspectors. Just a suggestion. I know it's you're up and running now. New organization.
Yeah.
I'd like to put that out there.
It's understandable. We do have a shortage in agent for our technicians. But I agree. We definitely need to cover all the demographics as much as possible. I agree.
Commissioner Lamalfa? Commissioner O'Connell?
no, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Commissioner Powell?
No, no comments.
Oh.
Commissioner Leo Sanchez?
Speak up.
Yeah, I know. Commissioner Leo Sanchez, any board comments?
None, thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. I think I've read enough already, but again, I really want to welcome you all again. Thank you, Laviris, very much. Thanks for coming out. Well, welcome to the team. We're very happy to have you. And yeah, Danielle, I'm excited for you for legislation and all set there. Item number 7, at this time, the commission will adjourn to executive session. This executive session is closed to the public. The commission is entering executive session for the purpose of discussing testimony and evidence presented in a hearing. This is authorized pursuant to Section 2C, Section 1 and 4 of the Open Meetings Act. Members of the public will no longer give here in the meeting, although the meeting will not end. Upon conclusion of the executive session, commission will return to the regular meeting, which is open to the public. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
It's properly moved and seconded. Secretary Jarrett, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Vancouver?
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbons?
Yes.
Commissioner Lamalfa? Commissioner O'Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Powell?
Yes.
Commissioner Polito Sanchez?
Yes.
And Chair Bird?
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks in advance.
Yeah.
Regarding we will return from executive session. Secretary Jers, we take a roll.
Commissioner Span Cooper,
Present.
Commissioner Gibbons,
Present.
Commissioner LaMalfa, Commissioner O'Connell,
Present.
Commissioner Powell,
Present.
Commissioner Polito Sanchez,
Present.
and Chair Bird.
Present. All right, item number 8, appeals. In the matter of 20 APP 20 Timbuktu Saloon Incorporated doing business as the Draft Sports Bar and Grill versus the City of Decatur Liquor Commission. Do I have a motion to affirm the decision of the local liquor commission?
So moved.
Been properly moved and seconded. Secretary Jers, would you please call our roll?
Commissioner Span Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbons,
Yes.
Commissioner LaMalfa,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Powell,
Yes.
Commissioner Polito Sanchez,
Yes.
and Chair Bird.
Yes, motion carries. In the matter of 20 APP 21 Variety Liquors Incorporated versus the City of Decatur, do I have a motion to affirm the first decision of the local liquor commission?
So moved.
You?
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Secretary Jers, would you please call our roll?
Commissioner Span Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbons,
Yes.
Commissioner LaMalfa, Commissioner O'Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Powell,
Yes.
Commissioner Polito Sanchez,
Yes.
and Chair Bird.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 9, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting of the ILCC?
So moved.
Sir? Thank
Sorry,
you,
who
Commissioner
seconded?
Powell.
Commissioner Powell.
Thank you. Secretary Jers, please call our roll.
Commissioner Span Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibbons,
Yes.
Commissioner LaMalfa,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Powell,
Yes.
Commissioner Polito Sanchez. Sorry, was that a yes? And Chair Bird.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Visual yes on that.
I can read this. Motion carries, we are adjourned. Next meeting is September 15th, 2021, in our beautiful new seat, Daily Plaza 209. Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good day.
Right. Read this out loud.
I have a paper packet back.